this morning in Jerusalem, it is pouring, pouring, pouring rain. Thank God, because we've been waiting. It's been a very, very dry fall, so it's great that it's finally started raining. But the truth is, when you're walking, actually and getting drenched in the rain, as I was this morning, it's hard to really connect with the miraculous, wonderful nature of this rain. So this morning, I walked to the shuk. I got really wet on the way, and I heard when I was choosing out some vegetables in the shuk, I heard an interesting conversation between two vegetable sellers. So one of them says, first you have to understand also that, when it's raining, nobody comes to the shuk. The shuk is basically empty. So I'm buying like my stuff, and I hear one of the sellers who's wearing, both of them were wearing kippahs. One of them says, he says, well, Todema, Yom Asa, Yom Basa. He says, you know what? One day's great and one day's terrible. What are you gonna do? So and then his friend says to him, he says, but with this very long suffering kind of tone, he says, well, everything is from the Master of the universe. What are you gonna do? Everything, all of our income comes to the Master of the universe. And he says, and you know what? And also, in synagogue, that's all we've been saying, rain, 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 rain. And now, okay, we got some. So I thought this was very funny. I thought it was a very telling conversation, because I think a lot of us, we sort of mouth this phrase, like gam zulutova, like also this is for the best. I lost my wallet. This trouble happened. What's gam zulutova? It's also for the best. But do we really feel it? And like these people in the shuk, it seems like they don't really when they're saying Mashiach Ruach Hamorid HaGeshem, do they really connect with the miraculous nature of this rain? I didn't really get that sense. So overhearing this conversation, it reminded me of something fantastic that I read this week in Bina. You know that I love Bina magazine, and I was talking about. So what it was a column edited by Yael Mermelstein, who's one of my favorite writers. She's awesome. And she was writing about, she asked different parenting experts about what you should do when the topic is, help, my child is having a miserable time in school this year, what should I do? Okay, so this is like a parent. I know this for me would be just be like a nightmare. If I knew one of my children was having a terrible time in school, it would tear me apart. I would be so miserable for them. I'd be like, oh no, what should I do? Should they switch teachers? Should they switch schools? Should we, what can we do to get them out of this miserable year? But it was interesting because one of the people that they asked, her name is Mrs. Pearl Abramowitz, who I think is a very highly respected parenting teacher. She had like a whole different take on how we should think about this challenge. Okay, the challenge of having a teacher that doesn't click with your child. So she told the following story. One year, one of my twin boys had a Rebbe who was very set in his ways. My son and I both knew it wasn't a good match for him. He and my son were really at odds. But instead of saying, well, what are you going to do? Instead of saying, well, what are you doing wrong to deserve this kind of treatment? I told my son, I'm so curious to see why Hashem is putting you through this challenge. I know there's always something special at the end. You get to choose how to react in this difficult situation. So we gave him a lot of support throughout the year. It wasn't easy. At the end of the year, my son said, you were right. I see how much I grew from that challenge. I don't get upset by little things that happen anymore. Wow. That is what Pearl Abramowitz. I don't know anything about her. I just know that I think her parenting course is called All Victories, and that like she focuses on you're in a difficult situation and maybe you can't change the situation, but you can choose your own reaction, your own correct reaction, and have a personal victory. So I'm just going to continue on what she says. She says it's not easy having a teacher that you can't get along with for a whole year, but our children are like seeds. Listen very carefully. This is so brilliant. I'm going to remember this forever. This is fantastic. Okay. She says, I'm going to repeat. It's not easy having a teacher that you can't get along with for the whole year, but our children are like seeds. What makes seeds grow? Not a comfortable bed or a beautiful room. Dirt. Our kids have so much potential, and Hashem puts fertile ground around our kids that help them grow. I need to help them to interpret their challenges. You get it? Just as a plant grows, it flourishes in dirt, so we too, we flourish when there's a certain amount of challenges in our lives. It's what forces us to grow. Okay? Isn't that great? To a child being yelled at by someone in authority means that he has no value. I will explain to him what that really means. With this kind of support, I know that the earth surrounding them will only help my children to grow and flourish. With the support of the parents, in other words, like when there's enough support at home for the kids when they're going through challenging situations, then they can flourish within the dirt of a challenging situation. And I just all of a sudden, I like reading this, I remembered something, a conversation that I had probably about a decade ago with my teacher, her Rabbini Imam Mizrahi, and we were talking, I think, about somebody who was going through a challenge in their life. I believe maybe it was somebody who had a miscarriage, so I said to her, "Wow, this person, she's really a miskina. She's really a miskina. She had a miscarriage." And Rabbini Yemima looked at me and she said, "No." She said, "She's a gibua. She's truly a gibua. She's really managing and she's really coping and she's pulling through this and she's growing from this. She's a gibua. She's a strong person. She's a heroine." And I remember at the time, like, it really shook me up. You know, it made me have this little correction of Rabbini Imima made me realize the extent to which, you know, someone's going through a challenge and I'm like, I just feel sorry for them. And I'm like, "Oy, what a miskin. Poor so-and-so and poor so-and-so and poor so-and-so that these things happen to them," you know. And I'm not saying that people don't need our sympathy, and people do need our support and our sympathy and that. People need, as Mrs. Abramovitz was saying, you need support to get through the dirt. I'm not saying we shouldn't support people and have sympathy for them, but with the correct sympathy and support and whatever, like, people really like these challenging situations, they are the stuff that we grow from. This is the dirt that we can flourish within. So I want to bless all of us that within like the, you know, I think, as I've said many times before, I believe that everyone, there's no such thing as a life without challenges, you know. Everyone has challenges that they cope with in their lives. So I think that it's a fantastic thing. It's a fantastic thing to be able to look at your challenge and say, okay, this is a challenge, and I'm gonna grow within this dirt. I'm gonna support myself and get support I need and grow through this situation, and I'm gonna have as Pearl Abramowitz calls it, I'm gonna have a victory. And I bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing, amazing week.